Oh, you need to have it
Hello,
on. Okay.
Mr. Toastmaster, and thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Today, I'll take you on a journey for 1,500 miles from Winslow, Arizona to Nashville, Tennessee. As some of you may remember, in part one, I had a very bad problem in Winslow, Arizona, and I've decided on this speech, I do not even have the time to go into it. So I am leaving Route 66. I'm getting back on the highway and I am going to Albuquerque. I made it to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the horrific incident that happened between Winslow and Albuquerque, I'll save for another day. I got to Albuquerque around midnight, and as Cooper and my husband, my son and my husband, listened to my story, they realized I wouldn't be going anywhere. So my husband, I don't know if you can see on the Zoom screen, but he was on his cell phone looking for me, looking for a day trip for myself. He asked me if I wanted to go to Taos, New Mexico. He said, what about Santa Fe? I told him Santa Fe sounds great. So the next day I drove up with Waldo to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I don't know if you can see Waldo. He's from a book series called Finding Waldo. And the idea is finding him in a giant centerfold or double page spread. Anyway, Waldo, if you can see, is on the post of this building. Anyway, I drove through Santa Fe by myself. I didn't get out of my car because I didn't want to get COVID. This is a trip I took during the COVID era, and nobody was getting out of their car. This was, however, the first state that I found since leaving California that I was allowed to eat in. There were restaurants. As I drove through Old Town, I found a parking garage with a restaurant up top. As you can see from the garage, there really weren't a lot of people eating here. It was just Waldo and I. We sat next to a beautiful Roman cathedral as we enjoyed the best Caesar salad of my life. And let me tell you, Waldo was great company. I even went to a little town I'd never heard of called Madras. Not Madrid, but Madrid. I'm forgetting how even to say it. Another restaurant I was told by many to visit was Garcia's. I was in Albuquerque for 3 days because of what happened to me in Winslow. So I decided, or I was able to go to Garcia's Mexican restaurant 2 times, and there were 7 restaurants to choose from. I got at least 2 of them, once, twice. This was a drive-through. There weren't a lot of restaurants open during COVID. I was very careful on my trip. I didn't want to take any family members or any friends of mine, especially Paula, COVID. At every gas station I stopped at, I wore rubber gloves, I used hand sanitizer, and I even sprayed the pump with the generic Lysol. When I got to Amarillo, Texas, 300 miles from Albuquerque, the next morning I was able to attend my niece's baby shower, my first baby shower ever on Zoom. When I got to Amarillo, Texas, I found something I'd been missing for a long time. Even in Texas, the restaurants were open. And some of you may notice the iconic rocking chair out front. It may be familiar to you. Cracker Barrel. I love the sights, smells, and sounds of Cracker Barrel. The accents are great, the food is great, and just the atmosphere, the gift shop. Again, Waldo was right there every step of the way, keeping me company. I gave him treats for it too. Next stop, Oklahoma. I'm on my way out of Texas, driving 300 more miles to Oklahoma. And let me tell you, I could see miles and miles because there weren't many cars on the road. There were a few Amazon type vehicles, mini Amazon type vehicles on the road with the semi trucks, but I saw very few cars. When I got to Oklahoma, it was bittersweet. Sweet because this girl let me taste her organic heirloom watermelon. Bitter because when I put the watermelons in my car to take back to my family, I had realized that Waldo was missing. Where's Waldo? I realized that I had left Waldo 300 miles back in Amarillo, Texas, at the Cracker Barrel. I immediately got on my Google. I called Cracker Barrel. I asked them frantically, do you still have Waldo? Did you find him? The shop manager got on the phone and said, well, as a matter of fact, he is sitting proudly in our lost and found. She promised to send Waldo to me, and I gave her an address. I can tell you, the next 200 miles were very sad. I was all alone. No Waldo. My cousins, first stop in Arkansas, were happy to see me and got my mind off of my loss right off the bat. My cousin fixed a great dinner. We sat together. We enjoyed ourselves. I really did forget about Waldo for several hundred miles. I went to a museum, Crystal Bridges in Arkansas. Some of you may know it. It was started by the woman who started Walmart, the wife of Sam Walton. No one knew it, but she was collecting American art in her basement for many decades and finally opened this museum, and she has the largest American art museum in America. I put this picture in so you could see how the COVID affected everything. It was still open, but no one was going anywhere. I sat with myself here and I stared, wondering why wasn't there one more picture on the left. My favorite exhibit was the sculpture of Pinocchio. And it is no lie how I began missing Pinocchio when I started feeling the childish part of myself coming out when I saw him. The next 500 miles, I visited antique stores, more family, more friends, until I got to Nashville. And upon entering my friend Paula's house, the first thing she showed me was the box at the front door. We opened the box, I opened the box, and there was Waldo. The Cracker Barrel held true on their promise, and Paula was the one who kept him safe for me until I got there. Thank you, Paula, and I appreciate everyone listening to my story. Mr. Toastmaster,